Hey now, it's your brother Marcus with another edition of the Elements of Inspiration Brother Marcus podcast. We're going to do something a little bit different in here today, everybody, because we have someone who is a therapist. And I'm not going to give any last names or anything of that nature. We're going to keep it as generic as possible, okay? Because I always bring the celebrities in here, and she might be a celebrity therapist, but I can't give you anything other than her first name. We're just going to call her Chelsea the therapist. How are you doing today?
I like that introduction. I'm doing amazing after that. I feel very important.
You are important. That's why I had to hunt you down. And, I never allow anybody to just come in to be a part of the podcast. I'm usually, I'm attracted to certain things about people, like who they are, what they do. And you just seem to be so laid back when I first met you. And I was like, wait a minute, I got to have you on my show. It took me a minute, but I got you.
You did. I appreciate the patience.
No problem. Good things come to what? Those who wait. Absolutely. So now, how long have you been a therapist?
I've been a therapist for not fully licensed, but I've been a licensed therapist for about a year and a half.
And how has it been for you being, a licensed therapist?
I love it. Just like any type of job and career, it has its ups and downs, but I see more positives than negatives.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. I have a purpose every day I wake up. Some days I might not be able to help people, but for 95% of the time, I'm able to help somebody in some way.
And what inspired you to say, you know what, I want to become a therapist. I want to get into this line of work. What was that moment that said, I can do this? What was that moment for you?
So I like to tell people that we probably come from a generation of some type of childhood trauma. We've all been traumatized in some type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that we don't address those traumas and they have affected us and how we act today. So I wanted to figure out, well, what can we do to fix this? And I had to fix myself first. So I actually went to therapy before I became a therapist. And I learned about the process and I realized how much it helped me and how much it impacted me. So I wanted to provide that gift for somebody else.
Okay. Now, one of the things that stood out to me is you said childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. What kind of, you don't have to go into detail. But what kind of trauma situations where you said, wait a minute, I've gone through this. I want to help somebody else with that. What was that moment for you that you just said, you went through, everybody's gone through trauma, me, you, everybody. But give us an example of something that you might have gone through that just kind of made you say, one day I got to help somebody with this same type of scenario.
So we typically see it a lot in broken families, parents arguing. People
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that hearing someone argue every single day can be traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
When that person grows up, they may grow up and treat their spouses and their partners the same way because that's the way they were presented what love is.
Mm.
So I know that people's behaviors are influenced by that. Like you hear that you're a product of your environment.
Yeah, all the time.
And it's very, very true. So it helped me look at things a little more objectively. It helped me understand people on a little more of a deeper and emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more so me just experiencing my experiences of hey, they may have said a joke, but in reality, it triggered me.
Right.
And I felt upset about it. And I'm like, why do I feel upset? Like, these are my family members. I should love them. I should be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But, everybody should be treated with respect.
Exactly.
Everyone should have boundaries. And
Mm-hmm.
I started to develop those once I started going to therapy.
And that's interesting, because a lot of us don't realize that before therapy, that people cross a lot of boundaries with us,
Mm-hmm.
and they think that it's okay, and when you start to use your voice, did you feel like people were looking at you awkward when you started to use your voice and say, this is not healthy, this is not good, you guys can't, say these things to me anymore. I am who I am based on my experiences, but you don't have the right to, you know what I mean? Did you feel that some people started treating you a little different when you started, speaking out?
Oh, absolutely. People have to remember a boundary is a compromise. So it's I don't want to do it and the other person doesn't want to do it. So when I started to set those boundaries and I realized people were getting upset, I'm like, well, I'm just trying to do something for myself. A boundary is a way of showing that I respect myself. It's a way that I find my peace to avoid any triggers that may happen. So yes, a lot of people were upset. A lot of people were mad, but I knew that ultimately this is something I had to do to show myself love. And since setting those boundaries, I can honestly say that life has been very, very peaceful.
And because you're able to set those boundaries, do you feel that you love yourself just a little bit more?
Absolutely. It's very empowering to be able to make a decision and stick with that decision and say like, hey, I can say no to you without, you getting mad at me. I don't care. Like, I want to take some time to rest instead of go to a party. I want to take time to, take a nap because I have children. So I'm going to take a nap instead of go to, happy hour with somebody. So it's okay to say no. It's okay to do things for yourself, as long as you have to listen to your body. So if you're tired, and it's like, I want to help this person, like their family, they're moving, like I don't want to do it by themselves, but you might not have that energy and space to do so. Something as simple as having a conversation with somebody where you say like, hey, like, do you have space to vent for me? That's setting a boundary.
Yeah.
And as a therapist, it comes up often where people would want to talk to me because they know I have the background and experience. So I have to remind them like, hey, I don't have the space to talk about this right now, but we can talk at another time.
Isn't that hard in a way? Because one of the things that I've noticed about you is you are a people person, period. You love people. That's what I gathered when I saw you moving around in, various areas. And I'm like, she's really attached to people. And when you have friends and family that say, oh, now she's a therapist, well, let me run this by her. You still have to set boundaries on that too. Is that hard? Like, let's just say it's like your mom or your dad or your sister, and they're like, and you feel like, I really don't feel like I need to decompress. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was a situation recently where my mom actually reached out to me and was like, hey, like, can you reach out to your cousin? She's going through something. She needs you. And I was like, hey, all I can offer is support. I have a heavy caseload myself. Around the holidays, typically mental health is very prevalent. And we're going through a lot of stress and they're very overwhelmed. So I wanted to be there and I wanted to help. And I was like, I can only do what I can. And right now it's like I can offer support, but I can't handle, an hour conversation about something because I probably listen to, 3 hours of people telling me their issues. So sometimes I just need a break. I'll go home and sit in silence. I won't answer any phone calls. I might, restrict that at least for a little bit. But I still have that. Like, you're right. I'm a people person. I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people. So I will still make time for them. But I'll do it on the times that I can do it. So if I'm too tired, I'm not going to do it. But if it's a day where like, hey, I can spare an hour to help you out with this, I'll do that then. So you can compromise, you can work with them, but like it's essentially just listening to your body, listening to what you need at that time.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing about being Chelsea. Were you always like? Now, how was it for you in the beginning? Becoming a therapist, was it difficult, like learning about different personality traits, and how was it for you trying to grasp the concept of one day I'm going to be a therapist, but I got to go through the preliminary rounds and pay my dues? How was that for you?
It was very intimidating. As therapists, I'm pretty sure other therapists have experienced some type of imposter syndrome where it's like, I don't know if I can do this job well. But I am a very observant person. I try to utilize my strengths, and I think my strengths align with being a therapist. I can sit there and I can listen. I'm very patient. So those are like little things that I was like, okay, I can use this to my advantage. But it was definitely hard to make that step and have the confidence in myself to say like, hey, like I can go out and help somebody. Because essentially I am, responsible for like their mental well-being.
Yeah.
So if they're not having a good day, if someone's, experiencing some SI, I don't want to trigger anybody, then like that's a concern. There's a chance that they can be at risk to hurt themselves. So I would have to check on them. I would have to look at the signs. So it sounds very silly, but I did a lot of observing through TV. I like to watch TV. I like to watch shows. I see how different family dynamics are in shows. I look at my friends and I watch their dynamics. I ask questions like, oh, like, how were you raised? Like, oh, what's your mom like? What's your dad like? How did your brother treat you? Did you get praise in school? Do you do well at work? Just to get to know the person, and it just helps me form those connections a little more.
Yeah, again, that goes back to the people person thing. You know what I mean? When you were growing up, did you have a lot of friends?
Yes. So I'm not from New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm actually born and raised in Maryland.
Ah, okay. All right.
Born and raised in Maryland. I was not in the military, but I did go to like 3 different high schools.
Uh-huh.
So I moved around a lot. So I was just naturally, I know a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
They're, just from just natural interactions, work,
Mm-hmm.
school, just meeting at the gym or something like that.
Yeah.
So growing up, it was just easy to form those connections. And for some reason, I always found that people came to me to talk to me.
Yeah.
You're right, I'm very level-headed. I'm very calm.
You're very approachable.
Very approachable. So people feel natural coming to me. So that's when the idea came. I was like, well, I help people, with their problems. I was like, maybe I can, do this like for a career.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to look more into it, and I realized the need was greater.
Mm-hmm.
So I am African American, and I realized there's a stigma with African American, the culture and therapy as a whole. It has gotten better, but I know that there has been struggles. Growing up, I'm pretty sure you experienced in your household. Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. Go to your room. You're good.
Wipe those tears away.
Wipe the tears away. I'm like, that's trauma. Like,
Give you something to cry about.
Yeah, like I'll give you something. Like technically, that's technically trauma. You're not supposed to go through that. You're supposed to feel love. You're supposed to feel like you can go to your parent and talk to them about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just different for each person.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. And so now being a therapist, a licensed, I like that, licensed therapist, and I'm not knocking any of the people who are life coaches. We're not taking shots at you, but because you're a licensed therapist, it gives you more validation. In terms of credibility, let me say that.
Yes.
You don't seem like you care about validation to a degree. You know what I mean?
I understand.
But the credibility that you have, that, people can say, oh, she's definitely legit. Now being this therapist, are you are there any other therapists in your family? Are you like the first to become a therapist?
Now that I think about it, I am the only therapist in my family. I do have some family members that are kind of following the same track as far as like a social worker position, but I am the only therapist in my family.
Wow. And how does that make you feel? Like, is there pressure, you know what I mean, being the therapist?
A little bit of pressure. That's where the boundaries come in. So if we go to a family function, I'll say like, hey, yes, I'm a therapist, but please don't dump on me. Like, ask how I am. I haven't seen you. I love you. Hugs, kisses everywhere. So there's a little bit of pressure where it's like they expect me to address, like, if something traumatic happens, hey, talk to them, make sure they're okay. There's a little bit of pressure because it's like even though I physically am not supposed to treat them, I can like give resources and information. And that's like what I'll do.
So let me ask this: personal life. We're not going to go too deep into your personal life, but your person or whoever you're with, how do they, if you are seeing anybody, or if you do see anybody, how do they deal with you being a therapist? Like, you're trying to analyze me. You know what I'm saying?
It happens. I do have a partner. So it does come up often where there's a little bit like, hey, please don't be a therapist to me. Just be my partner.
Yeah.
So it comes up. That's just me learning to navigate that. I never experienced that. I just became a therapist before I became licensed. We were together.
Right.
So now that I'm a licensed therapist, I'm like, okay, I need to learn these things. So I just had to go through some mistakes of like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have said that, or maybe she doesn't need advice, or maybe you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So it's just different. But it's just listening to the person. I try to tell people that with every job, I'm pretty sure a doctor doesn't want to be a doctor to their family. Like, if they need the help, obviously they'll help, but it's like, I know they will want to do it.
Yeah, I know that weird feeling, like, because of who I am and what I do, and now I show up at an event, you gonna get on the mic. I'm like, I'm not here for that. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But but that's good though, that you know how to try to look at yourself and say, ooh, I better not analyze who I'm with because I need to let everything just flow. And
Absolutely.
sometimes we can be so quick to, no, you have MDD, or, you know what I mean? Or stuff like that. But so now that you've been moving in this realm of being a therapist, what do you do to get away from it all? Because, like you said, a lot of people are coming to you. You're seeing a lot of people. You probably just saw somebody before you just came into the meeting, and now you have to decompress within 15 minutes to be on this microphone to talk to me. You know what I mean? What does Chelsea the therapist do to woosah, for lack of a better term?
Self-care is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
I prioritize self-care. So I play video games. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I de-stress. I like TV shows. I like to listen to music.
Mm-hmm.
You are right. I did see somebody right before I came to you, but I listened to music on the way here.
Okay, because that's why
kinda
you're so cool right now.
Yeah, to kind of decompress. So it's like I have my ways. Like, COVID was very helpful in the sense of, like, I found ways to not be bored at home.
Mm-hmm.
You were stuck at home and you couldn't do anything. So self-care is very important for me right now. So yes, I'm very busy, but I still find time to do things that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to get my favorite meal, I'm going to get my favorite meal.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to, listen to a song, I'm going to listen to a song. If I want to watch a movie, I'm going to watch a movie. I want to call a friend, I'm going to call a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of things I can do, but I definitely take that time to decompress. So like I said, I might come home and just play with my animals. I do have animals. So
What kind of animals you got? I'm just curious. What kind of animals does therapists have?
I have 2 cats and I have a dog.
2 cats? What kind of cats?
They're just regular tabby cats. I do have an
How
orange
did I
cat.
know? Girl, I was watching you. No, I'm just kidding. That's weird. I'm just joking. And the dog?
It's a small little dog. He's very cute.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Shih Tzu Bichon mix.
No, excuse me.
Yeah, considered, like, he's apparently a mutt of dogs. But he's very cute. He's going to be 9 years old, but he still looks like he's about 3.
Wow.
That's just because I probably cook his food. and
Are you
everything.
serious?
Yeah.
See, this is why we can't do this. Okay, Chelsea, the therapist. So, do you have like fish and stuff like that? Like,
I do have a fish tank.
look at this. Look at this. Is she so predictable? No, I'm just kidding. You're a people person. You love people. You love animals. And so these are the things that give you a sense of normality, like just to come home and, let your cat do what cats do. I had a tabby. The cat was crazy, jumping on the counter and all that.
Absolutely.
But that kind of gives you joy,
Absolutely.
I've heard it been said before, and do therapists have therapists?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am very open about going to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, like, the best therapists need therapists. Like, you gotta remember, we're taking on all of everybody's problems, plus our natural stuff that we have going on in our daily life. We have issues with people and conflict, and we get stressed and we get overwhelmed. So they always say the best therapists need therapists.
Yeah, and you're obviously one of the best therapists because you decompressed right before you got on this microphone.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. So, what's your favorite place to travel to?
It used to be
Do you
Maryland.
like to travel?
I like to travel. I'm not gonna lie that I was a little skeptical after COVID. But I used to take a trip out the country, one trip out the country, and then one trip like within the states just to visit random places. So I haven't traveled in a while. But when I do travel, I just like to go anywhere that's good food.
Yeah,
I travel for food.
You're a foodie.
I'm a big foodie.
Well, so what's your favorite type of food? I'm just curious.
I'm from Maryland, so I love seafood.
Uh-huh.
I love seafood, shrimp, crab, any of that. I'm not really big on like other wings, chicken wings, but
Yeah.
I'm a big, like, anything with seafood I can eat.
Wow, definitely Maryland. I have a daughter who's a therapist, lives in Maryland. We'll talk about that later. But so that's cool. No little people, right? No little
kids.
people. That's all right. Enjoy your life with the pets and the fish and all.
Well,
that
I
kind
can.
of- Yeah, because
It'll come.
listen, because I'm telling you, it's a whole different day in America. Okay.
I hear it a lot from my clients. Like, I understand.
Oh
Parenthood
yes,
is
you
very
get those
difficult.
stories. Wow, what is one of the I don't want to say the weirdest stories that, well, I guess kind of like a unique story like that you heard and it was like, how do I help them? Have you ever been? You don't have to give an example per se, but have you ever had a situation where somebody told you something and you felt like, oh, what do I do?
Oh, absolutely. So I am a master's level social worker. So I'm still licensed, but I'm obtaining clinical hours so I can become a clinical social worker. So I do have a supervisor. I utilize my supervisor.
Good.
There have been times where it's like this person comes to me and they have this issue, and I was like, I feel like I know what to do, but I'm not sure that it's going to help them.
Right.
So I'm not afraid to ask for help, especially now in this time where I'm learning. It's very important for me to use my resources.
Can you be my therapist? No, I'm just kidding. No, but I like that. I like that. It's the fact that you're willing to say, okay, I know my limit. I think I know what to do, but I'm not going to cross that line, and I'll give it to somebody who's in a, I don't want to say a higher level, but just somebody who's been doing it longer.
More experience.
Yeah, there you go.
She has more experience than me. She knows a lot more than me, and she's a very nice supervisor. She's a very good therapist as well.
Yeah.
But she's been my supervisor like while I was in grad school.
Oh,
and
so that's cool.
And she continued on, and I was like, wow, like you're amazing. Like you've been nothing but helpful to me. So leaning on your supports, especially like when you are like in this early in your career. I work with other therapists, obviously at my main job, and we lean on each other. Like we have a case, and it's like, hey, like what should I do with this person? It's nice to get that feedback because like right now I'm just trying to gain as much experience as I can.
Yeah, and you know what? And I want people to know that Chelsea, the therapist, she can hold a secret. I can tell, and that I think that makes for a good therapist as well, being able to hold it in, and also being able to go to someone and say, hey man, I need to, I don't want to use the word dump on y'all, but I got to give it so I can free up my mind. And it's good that you do like to go back to Maryland, when you can. Now, being a therapist, it is kind of hard to just get up and go and just travel because the needs of the people are kind of like greater and people need you. Do you feel like you have to be some sort of superhuman being sometimes, with like appointments back to back to back?
Sometimes I do have to be a superhuman. It does affect the way I travel. So when I am going places, I do have a conscious mind of like, okay, I might not travel around the holidays. Because the holidays might be a little bit, but I still have to take care of myself. So it has to be a thing where I have to be confident in my abilities as a therapist to give them the proper coping skills and proper tools and resources they can use in my absence. So when people do come to me, I will ask them like, hey, who are your supports outside of here?
That's a good question.
You only see me 1 hour for a week, sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes once a month. It depends, but you don't see me all the time. So it's like it's necessary to have a support, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone to talk about mental health with, but just someone you can just vent to.
Yeah.
I was very open with my therapist, like, hey, I would like to talk about this, and sometimes I just want to vent. She's like, okay, that's fine. And I have clients as well. They was like, I just want to vent about work. Okay, you can vent about work. I'll sit there, I'll listen. I've built a great rapport. Like I've seen some people since my internship, early 2023. So I've seen people for almost 2 years now.
Wow.
So it just feels good. Like those connections are pure and genuine. And when the people, it's nice to hear say, oh my gosh, this is a great session. Or, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. You helped me. Or, wow, that was really good. Like those aha moments, they really like boost a little serotonin for us.
Look at you all being technical. Girl, we don't know what serotonin is. No, I'm just
Happiness.
kidding. We're like, serotonin? Yo, you are so funny. But I definitely appreciate you. What would you say to any younger people or just people in general that want to become therapists? What are some of the things that you would say that they probably might want to do before stepping into this career?
Honestly, it's a commitment. You really have to commit to being a therapist. It's not a thing where you can just, I'm going to cancel this session because I'm going to get my nails done, or I'm going to cancel this session because I don't feel like doing it today. And that person may have really needed you. So it's like you really have to commit to the position. It's going to be a little bit of a sacrifice of your time. You are going to spend time thinking about what you can do to help them. Like you might have had a session where, they share like, hey, I lost someone in my life. You're probably going to go home and think like, oh, well, I feel very bad for that person. I hope they're okay. And like, so your work really never stops. So I think it's like, you have to understand like what that commitment is going to be, depending on what you want to do. And if you want to be a therapist, like especially like individual sessions, you're going to have to make that commitment and give up a little bit of your life, but not everything. You're still compromise.
You're still human.
You can still compromise. You're not a robot. You can only do what you can. So it's like, I know that I have to make a commitment to coming out to seeing everybody, but I also know that, hey, Chelsea, you got to take care of yourself as well.
Yeah.
So I can plan out, like I'll tell them if I know I'm going somewhere, I'll try to tell them like weeks in advance, months in advance, like, hey, I'm going out I won't be here. Obviously, if holidays are coming up, they probably won't be there as well. So like we can at least plan for it. But it's still like in the back of your mind, like, oh, I hope they're okay while I'm gone.
Yeah.
So it is a good commitment.
People person. Ladies and gentlemen, we're having a conversation up close and personal with Chelsea the therapist, giving some advice to those who you want to be a therapist, jump aboard. But remember, it's all about dedication. You got to be dedicated. You can't be worried about trying to do other things, and you can't be in it for the money. Some people, they work to do jobs that they're, for the money, and I get that too. But from my perspective, your gifts will make room for you, and I believe that this is your gift, to be a therapist. A couple of key points. You love people. You seem to have a genuine heart. You love animals. I want to find out what therapists don't have any animals. If they don't, I got to be leery of them. No, I'm just kidding. But I appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us. I know you got a very busy schedule. And last weird question. Weird because, how many people have you ever seen in one day? Is there like a limit that you can, you know what I mean? Like you can't see more than 10 people a day. That's like 10 hours and that's a lot. Have you ever seen like a lot of people in one day?
I would say the most I've seen in a day is probably like 7 or 8 people. That's a full work day.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah.
Hour sessions. You have like, okay, have a good day, and you have like a few minutes to go use the restroom and get some water, get a quick bite to
and
eat,
then right back at it.
Right back to it. So
wow.
I always tell therapists like, hey, if you can schedule like you can do 2 and then like take an hour off. And 2 more, take an hour off. Do 1, take 2 hours, like whatever your day looks like.
Yeah.
Especially if you can be flexible with your schedule.
Cool. All right, everybody. That is Chelsea the therapist. And you know what? I got another question for you. What do you tell people that really need help? What would you say to a young person or anybody that's just dealing with all types of identity crisis or just, issues from home? Like, what would you tell them as we get ready to wrap up? What could you say that would be inspirational, motivational, and encouraging to get them back on track?
I guess I would just say the easiest thing, it's very cliche, but you really have to take things one day at a time. Life is very overwhelming. So it's like, yes, we have responsibilities and we have things to do, adults, children, teens, whatever. It's like, okay, how can you break that day up? It's like, I can work on this task for this and I can do this here, like working on small goals. But I would say like the biggest thing is having a good support system is important.
Wow.
Just to have somebody that you can talk to, someone that can like listen, but when you are looking for these support, make sure it's somebody that can validate your feelings. You don't want to talk to somebody and they say like, oh, well, you'll be all right. Yeah. But you can talk to someone and say like, hey, I'm feeling like this. And it's like, hey, I really understand where you're coming from. I'm very sorry. Like, how can I support you in this moment? So just supports are very important.
And, there's a saying that they say, what is it? It's okay to not be okay. A lot of people say that these days. What do you think about that statement?
I love it. It is okay not to be okay. Someone will say, sorry for crying. I'm like, cry as much as you want. Write in a journal.
If I cry right now, what would you do?
As a therapist, you're probably trained to sit in silence. You have to read and observe, see what they need. But it's just offering. I like to ask people like, hey, how can I support you right now?
Wow.
And that makes a world of difference. Like, oh, hey, like you care about my opinion and not just assuming that this is what they need. I don't want to trigger somebody or make them more upset.
Well, let me give you a little warning. If I start crying and you say, what can I do to support you? I'm going to be like, girl, give me $5. You going to support my $5 need? No, I'm just kidding.
I can spare $5. This is holidays.
You got money. Listen, everybody, we're hanging out in the studio with the Elements of Inspiration Brother Marcus broadcast, and we're with Chelsea the therapist. It has been my pleasure to have you on this show. I'm so excited because it was hard to get you because I know you're super busy, and I was able to get you before the season really got in full swing. With that being said, thank you. All right, everybody, we're going to get back to more inspirational conversations. As I say on the radio, don't touch that dial, America. But since we're not on the radio, we're on the podcast. I'm going to tell you, don't touch that podcast. We'll be back with more great guests. And we just want to give a big shout out to Chelsea, the therapist. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcus. This is very nice.
And she's the only person that calls me Marcus. But anyway, you got to love it. She's a true therapist. We'll be right back. Stay close.